inspiring contemporary photographers to watch today. If you watched my recent video, What is Contemporary Photography?, you'll know I argued that the medium today is no longer bound by a single definition. Photography has become a space where ideas, forms, and traditions collide. This video is a follow-up to that conversation. Today, I want to share 10 contemporary photographers to watch. Artists from around the world whose work feels urgent, resonant, and alive right now. So my selection for this list was guided by 3 ideas: global reach, conceptual depth, and relevance. Projects that speak directly to our moment, whether about memory, consumer culture, landscape, identity, or technology. This is not about trends or celebrity names. It's about artists whose work I keep returning to, because it lingers, provokes, or unsettles. Let's start with Salvatore Vitale. His work looks at the invisible infrastructures that quietly govern our lives. Vitale doesn't use photography to reassure. He uses it to critique. His series, Death by GPS, is rooted in a South African center of mining and colonial extraction, and today, a hub for gig economy IT workers serving Western companies. Vitale draws a direct parallel. The same systems that once extracted minerals now extract human labor, disguised as freedom and flexibility. Death by GPS juxtaposes 2 precarious forms of labor: the zama-zamas, informal miners risking their lives in abandoned shafts, and freelance tech workers tethered to global outsourcing. These narratives collide with the fortunes of tech empires, implicating figures like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, whose wealth remains tied to extraction and inequality. Vitale's images shimmer with a polished, hyper-real surface, yet are haunted by dust, waste, and violence. A reminder that every app, every device, every navigational command rests on the labor and risk of others. The images are uncanny: barren earth, photographed with clinical precision, landscapes that feel both forensic and surreal. Vitale stages a dialogue between 2 materials: the invisible architecture of satellites and algorithms, and the dust and dirt of the ground itself. Visually, his photographs shimmer with a hyper-real sheen, almost mechanical, yet that polish is set against grit and decay. It's this tension between control and collapse that makes his work so powerful. If Vitale dissects technology and its failures, the next photographer turns his gaze to something older, yet equally fragile: the American landscape. Next, Bryan Schutmaat is often described as a contemporary heir to Ansel Adams. But unlike Adams, he doesn't photograph untouched wilderness. He turns to small towns and rural communities where land and life are bound together, often marked by struggle and decline. In Good Goddamn, Schutmaat followed a man in Texas during his final days before prison. The portraits are stark and tender, framed against fields, fences, and skies that stretch endlessly. The work distills themes of freedom and inevitability, intimacy and loss. The wide open landscape serving both as a stage for possibility and as a reminder of constraint. Visually, Schutmaat's muted palette and careful use of natural light give his images a lyrical melancholy. His large format compositions echo the grandeur of Adams, yet his tones lean toward the subdued, dusty blues, weathered browns, and softened grays that evoke the erosion of time. Faces emerge with quiet dignity, etched by labor and circumstance, while the land itself seems to carry memory. Instead of timeless vistas, we see a fragile contemporary West, landscapes haunted not by emptiness, but by the human stories embedded within them. From the rugged American plains, let's turn to an artist who rethinks photography entirely by borrowing the logic of painting. Shirana Shahbazi is one of the most innovative contemporary photographers working today. Born in Tehran and now based in Zurich, Her practice moves between photography, painting, and installation. She constantly asks, what happens when photography borrows from painting? When abstraction enters a supposedly documentary medium, or when a still life becomes less about objects than about perception itself? Her recent works, including her displacement series, embody these questions. These pieces are hand-colored objects that feel as much sculptural as photographic. The images themselves, built from geometric color planes and subtle surfaces, shimmer with hyper-clean clarity, yet remain grounded in tactile materiality. By circulating between mediums and formats, Shahbazi destabilizes how we read images, creating photographs that insist on their physical presence as much as their illusion. What drives Shahbazi is the logic of painting, translated into the language of photography. She treats the photograph not as a fixed record, but as a mutable form, one that bends into other media and returns transformed. With displacement, she shows us that photography can be surface, sculpture, and abstraction all at once, proof that contemporary photography is as much about perception and process as it is about depiction. If Shahbazi expands photography through the logic of painting, Wang Ningde takes the medium apart entirely, deconstructing it into fragments and shadows. So we move to Wang Ningde, one of China's most conceptually rigorous contemporary photographers. Born in Liaoning province in 1972, Wang treats it as a philosophical language, a way of probing memory, illusion, and perception. His celebrated Form of Light series begins with a complete photograph, but instead of showing it directly, Wang divides the image into hundreds of numbered fragments, prints them on transparency film, cuts them by hand, and reassembles them on a panel. When illuminated, these fragments cast a collective shadow that reconstructs the original image, not as a photo, but as its ghostly projection. What we see is both present and absent, a reminder that photography is always a shadow of time. Most recently, Wang has been working on the deluge. Here, he lets natural processes shape the photographic surface. Seeds, leaves, and organic matter pressed into emulsions alongside washes of ink. The results look like residues left behind by a flood, half image, half imprint of nature itself. It's a body of work that blurs human control and natural transformation, turning photography into a conversation between culture and ecology. What makes Wang's practice so compelling is the way it dismantles the certainty we expect from photographs. His works insist that images are never fixed. They are fragments, projections, residues. In doing so, he redefines photography as something less about representation and more about process, memory, and fragility. And if Wang Ningde shows us the ghost of the photograph, Buck Ellison shows us its surface perfection and how privilege hides within it. Now, from Wang's shadows and fragments, we move to images that look pristine on the surface, yet hide a sharp social critique. Buck Ellison, based in Los Angeles, creates photographs that mimic the glossy language of lifestyle catalogs and stock photography. Clean interiors, sunlit lawns, polo fields, family dinners. At first glance, they seem aspirational, even mundane, but Ellison's celebrated series Living Trust reveals the critique underneath. He cast actors to reenact scenes of upper-class white family life, parents giving financial advice, siblings lounging on manicured lawns, heirs practicing equestrian sport. The photographs could pass as bank brochures or luxury ads, and that's the point. By mimicking these familiar images, Ellison shows how whiteness and privilege are not only lived, but continuously reinforced through visual culture. What makes his work powerful is precisely this tension. His photographs are seductive yet unsettling, polished yet critical. They don't reject the language of privilege. They mirror it back, until it becomes strange. In doing so, Ellison transforms photography into a tool of social critique, asking us to look harder at the everyday images that normalize power and inequality. If Ellison reveals privilege through the surface of consumer culture, Farah Al Qasimi explodes it into a vibrant spectacle of humor and excess. Farah Al Qasimi is a photographer and artist whose work blends humor, critique, and vibrant visual excess. She often stages domestic interiors and consumer environments where patterned fabrics, cosmetics, and everyday objects collide into almost dizzying compositions. At first glance, her images feel playful and decorative, yet beneath the surface, they explore how identity is constructed through commodities and how global consumer culture shapes the way we see the Gulf and beyond. Her recent project Toy World makes this tension explicit. While the title suggests playfulness, the series critiques how war and politics are mediated through entertainment and spectacle. For the first time in her practice, Al Qasimi also works in black and white, historicizing the present and reminding us that today's images are already prototypes of future history. Within this body of work, even the metaphor of animals enters the frame. Horses, for instance, buck when they sense danger they cannot escape. By contrast, humans are trained to see danger through images, which divert instinct into entertainment, spectacle, and control. What makes Toy World powerful is the way it seduces with surface while exposing complicity underneath. Moving on, from Al Qasimi's consumer spectacle, we turn to Diana Markosian, who uses images to restage and reimagine her own family history. Born in Moscow in 1989 and raised in the United States, Markosian works fluidly between photography, film, and text. Her projects often explore memory, migration, and the complicated ways personal and collective histories are told. Her series, Santa Barbara, 2020, is perhaps her most ambitious work to date. Inspired by the American soap opera that her mother once watched in post-Soviet Russia, the project restages her family's emigration story, her mother's decision to pursue a new life in California through an arranged marriage. Markosian worked with actors, creating lush cinematic photographs that blur fact and fiction. Alongside the images, she produced a film, a book, and interviews with family members, weaving together multiple perspectives into one layered narrative. What makes Santa Barbara so striking is how it mirrors the very nature of memory, fragmented, reconstructed, and never entirely stable. By mixing staged scenes with autobiography, Markosian shows how personal history is not just remembered, but also imagined. In doing so, she expands what contemporary photographers can achieve, creating work that is deeply personal, yet resonates universally with questions of identity, family, and belonging. If Markosian uses cinema to retell memory, Lieko Shiga pushes photography into the dreamlike and surreal, where memory itself feels unstable. We have now reached the 8th contemporary artist in this journey, and if Diana Markosian reconstructs memory through cinematic staging, Lieko Shiga pushes memory into the realm of the dreamlike and surreal. Born in 1980, Shiga is one of Japan's most distinctive contemporary photographers. Her work is unsettling and theatrical, blending staged imagery, experimental techniques, and collaboration with local communities. She is less concerned with recording reality than with transforming it, using photography as a space where imagination, memory, and trauma overlap. Her acclaimed series, Rasen Kaigen, Spiral Coast, was created while she lived in a small coastal village in Miyagi Prefecture. After the devastating 2011 tsunami, Shiga worked with residents to stage photographs at night using long exposures and artificial lighting. The resulting images are ghostly and saturated, villagers lit like apparitions, landscapes charged with an uncanny energy. The photographs resist clear narrative, yet they speak powerfully to resilience, memory, and the way catastrophe reshapes place. What sets Shiga apart is her ability to fuse social engagement with a bold, experimental visual language. Her images feel mythical, haunted, and strange, but they are deeply tied to the communities and environments where they were made. By transforming lived experience into poetic visions, Shiga redefines photography as a collaborative and imaginative act, one that lingers in the mind long after the image fades. From Shiga's haunted visions, we turn to an artist who embraces absence itself, Jošt Franko, whose work asks how memory survives when there is no evidence. Continuing on this exploration of memory, we turn to an artist who works with something more fragile, the question of what remains when evidence is gone. Jošt Franko, born in Slovenia in 1993, often focuses on migration, labor, and displacement, stories that are ongoing, yet often underrepresented in mainstream narratives. His recent project, A Memory Without Evidence, was created in collaboration with refugees who traveled the Balkan route into Europe. Through a series of workshops and dialogues, Franko worked with displaced communities to create a newspaper publication that tells their stories. The title comes from a haunting line shared by one participant. As refugees, we have lost all of our history and documents, and we keep a memory without evidence. The work juxtaposes images of landscapes, objects, and gestures with these narratives, offering a record that resists the demand for proof. Franko doesn't try to fix memory into evidence. Instead, he gives space to absence, to longing, and to the psychological weight of displacement. His photographs are quiet and lyrical, but they carry a sharp critique of the systems that marginalize and erase. And finally, we arrive at Widline Cadet, whose work explores migration as ritual, where disappearance becomes both loss and survival. Congratulations if you have made it this far. Our final artist is Widline Cadet, whose work explores migration not only as movement across borders, but as ritual, a repeated act of leaving, adapting, and remembering. Born in Haiti in 1992 and now based in Los Angeles, Cadet creates staged photographs that reimagine memory as ceremony. Figures are often partly veiled, obscured by fabric, or posed in ways that suggest both presence and absence. These choices aren't about trickery or manipulation. They are about reconstructing the atmosphere of diaspora, where belonging is always provisional, always in the making. Her series, Cérémonie Disparition, or Ceremony of Disappearance, makes this explicit. The work transforms migration into a ritual of passage, shedding one life, inventing another, and carrying memory forward through embodied gestures. It's a ceremony where disappearance does not mean erasure, but survival, where identity is preserved precisely by being reshaped. What makes Cadet's practice so resonant is the way she reframes memory as something active, not archival. Rather than offering evidence, she creates rituals of remembrance, spaces where the personal and collective meet, where absence becomes a form of presence. In Cérémonie Disparition, memory is not lost to migration. It is remade through it. For me, this is where the medium feels most alive, at the edge between representation and imagination, where photographs don't just record, but transform. If you enjoyed this exploration of contemporary photographers to watch in 2025, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my earlier video, What is Contemporary Photography?, for a deeper dive into the ideas shaping the medium today. And let me know in the comments. Which of these artists stood out to you the most? And who else should be on this list? Thanks for watching.